name is Josh Cramer. I'm the Director of Educational Workforce Development here at America Makes. Welcome to America Makes Game Day here at Rapid plus TCT 2023, live in Chicago. I have the very absolute pleasure of having Mr. Michael Parkyn here. And first of all, sir, thank you for your service. Michael is a retired fighter pilot for the Marines. We had Marines in our family with my grandfather and his twin brother, my Uncle Joe. So I know how much that you've given to us and our family at home. Certainly appreciate all of that. It's a pleasure working with you every day as well.
Well, thank you, Josh.
Absolutely. And Michael, obviously your capacity with OSD, with Mantech specifically, working on education, but things bigger than education at Mantech as well. Can you give us a little background about yourself, that military history a little bit, and then maybe even what you're working on currently?
Okay, sure. Well, in terms of background, I come from a family of small businessmen and manufacturers. My dad had a machine shop in Southern California, and I spent my time away from school and summer vacations inside that shop, learning how to work with the lathes and the mills and learning to weld. So if you wanted to be near my dad, which I did, you were exposed to industry. So I got to see a small business perspective of how those organizations worked in with major contractors, worked with ironically, with the Defense Department and NASA at the time. So he shushed me off to the military, and as you said, I went in the Marine Corps. I wanted to fly, but the Marine Corps is the smallest of the DoD services. So they're relatively poorly resourced compared to the others. I know there are people who would think of the Marine Corps as huge, but yeah. The saying in the Marine Corps when I was in was, we do Windows too, because every Marine has to kick in with a number of roles. So I, in addition to flying, worked in training and education for several years, enlisted training as well as postgraduate education for officers. So I got to look there at the transfer of skills and knowledge to people. So a little bit of a background there, and then I also, in my non-flying tours, was assigned to write strategy and policy as part of a small think tank once, and also in working at the National Security Council. So it's a fruit salad career that brought me here to Mantech, and has me doing what I'm doing. You want to hear about Mantech?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and Michael, this talks about one of those just rich histories, right? We talk about the people of additive manufacturing all the time. We're launching this new platform called AM Jobs that talks about the people and their pathways and how they got into the industry and all those kind of things. And I know one of the fascinating things for me personally in getting to work with you and getting to know you was that history of growing up with Dad in the shop, right? And taking that practical knowledge and just that experience that you had, and obviously then going into the training side, and now obviously working at Mantech on the strategy and so many programs and those kind of things. And obviously we have quite a bit of work together in the education space, but again, you're working beyond some of the education stuff as well.
Well, yeah, I guess you could say I'm a 30,000 foot person in some respects. I have quite a bit of experience with planning and with writing strategy and policy pieces. So there's a need for someone who can work with imprecise amounts and vague futures and point to big blue arrows. So I do get involved with that. As to the past part, yeah, I never thought I'd be using that experience from a machine shop, and it was the last thing my father intended. Yeah. He wanted, like most fathers in the 60s and 70s, as a child of the Depression, he wanted me to go to college.
Sure.
And there was a point at which he wouldn't train me anymore. And he said, get out, you're going to go to school, you're going to get a degree, you're going to be a pilot. And so those skills and that experience was irrelevant for a while.
Yeah.
Suddenly, as we're embarked in this journey of trying to promote an advanced technology implementation in business, in small and medium-sized businesses, all those memories come back as very relevant. Yeah. Going into major manufacturers in Los Angeles to deliver a repair part for a machine or something fabricated, and seeing how their contracting process works, how a shop is or isn't resourced to adapt their tooling, and then how they get to join that overall part of the ecosystem. So it's relevant again, strangely enough.
I mean, it's interesting too. You think generational shifts, right? I mean, I have a 14-year-old at home who is a very excited 14-year-old because he just got accepted in his career in technical school. right? So he's going for welding and fabrication as well as automotive technician. So like how, and that to me is like, I'm a super proud dad, right? And so it's an interesting generational shift as we come back to a lot of those skill sets that we know are in demand across not only the manufacturing sector, but our DoD workforce and the organic industrial base that also supports that as well.
Yes, I totally agree. In fact, when I think back about the family stories, my father came from a carpentry background as a boy and picked up those skills with machining and welding and metalworking. Right when he went into the National Guard, he was also employed at a shipyard. And then after the war, he picked up the rest of his skills, believe it or not, at MIT, at night school, in CTE classes they offered under the GI Bill. And that was the foundation for my family's success, and a very good career that my dad had.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it seems the needle is shifting back that way.
Yeah, I mean, and it's tremendous because I think that's the richness, right? I mean, obviously, you pulling from that experience for so much of the work that we have, and one of the big things that we're working on together, besides the typical core mission stuff, obviously, is we are a DoD-supported institute. We care deeply about the strategy and the mission and the vision with Michael Britt Crane and team at Mantech that you're tied tightly to. But also working on a program that we call AMPed, which is the Additive Manufacturing Portal for Education. Hopefully we'll have a name for that, here pretty soon. I keep throwing out the title, maybe AM Train. We have AM Jobs and AM Nation, and maybe it's AM Train. I don't know, maybe it is. But that specific tool is linking, job roles in the industry that are defined, competencies that are defined, and now starting to become that, Match.com, the card catalog of sorts, into where do I find the training, right? Because you look at all of these booths and, most folks, they're offering training on the technology. We were just talking that a little bit earlier, but filling in those gaps, and looking at not only the inspiration and awareness, but the opportunity of, what do I need? Where do I find it? How do I get it? How do I get it fast, right?
Right. Well, so to explain a little bit of the background on that, OSD Mantech, the DoD's representative for manufacturing technology, we're really concerned with what happens prior to new technologies going into steady state production. So we really want to accelerate the rate at which these new technologies come in, additive manufacturing figuring prominently in that. And so we're really concerned with making sure that the workforce gets there too, and that's the EWD part of it. So we want to make sure that with projects like AMPed, with our other initiatives, the workforce that works in and around DoD wastes no time in picking up these new technologies and putting them in. So if we're going to do that, as the technologies come out, we have to be out in front of some of the traditional learning institutions. We have to make sure that people know exactly what it takes to upskill. How do they get involved with this group of people? Where do they go for the training? And so yes, lest anybody think that that the federal government or DoD is involved with dating apps, we're really talking about matching the skills up.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Someone there's got a question on that one, right? What do you mean, Match.com? We're not getting paid or endorsed by Match.com.
Nobody would ever get married again.
No, I was going to say, yeah, that's definitely true. And I mean, obviously, I know and I believe you're pretty dedicated in the additive space, but obviously OSD Mantech and the Educational Workforce Development Team is across all of the institutes, right? Or
yes.
Good core of those 9, but engaged across all 16.
Yes, all the 9 DoD institutes, in fact, all the institutes do have a sort of a workforce piece that goes with them. And our interest from OSD Mantech is which of those developing technologies, A, has rapid growth potential because that's going to affect the workforce in large numbers. And then B, there's criticality. Which one of them is going to get involved with that process that's a game changer for our military? Yeah. So we're into all the institutes and their missions.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, Michael, that you bring to the table that I truly appreciate, right, is pushing the bounds on some of this stuff, right? Asking the why. How do we approach that? Just because we've done it that way for 10 years doesn't necessarily mean we should for the next year or the next 2 or the investment in the next 5 and those kind of things. And, we certainly appreciate that because we're always trying to look at the trend. We're trying to look at, what's the opportunity and certainly, get out in front of industry in a little bit of this, catch up with industry in a little bit as we look at the workforce realm of things. Your take on that?
I believe firmly in the goodness of that. In fact, for people who know a little bit about welding, welding took a giant advance in the late 1940s because DoD-sponsored activities helped them up the technologies of metal and gas welding and implemented it on a wide scale at the end of the war. So it was a game changer for the defense industry, but it changed the face of industry. And that's a place where government can help. Yeah. So we want to be there, we want to help.
Yeah, and I mean, so much of your work, both in the passion project of it, obviously, and I know you well, so I know part of it's passion project, but is looking at that defense base, right, and making sure we have the capability in the supply chain, in the defense base, in the industrial base to support those technologies as well.
Very true. I don't know if I can add much to it. Yes. Certainly.
No, that sounds good. And I certainly appreciate you being here on game day, having a chance to capture just a small glimpse. I take it as an absolute pleasure to work with you. I'll say every day, but we have the chance to engage quite frequently. Tremendous respect for the work you're doing, the way you're approaching things, the whole team down there at Mantech and EWD, and certainly appreciate everything you've done for us as a country as well.
Well, thank you.